Hey everyone, just before we get started, I'm so excited to bring you today's guest and to talk about finances and helping to change your life. The one thing I do want to say is I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax professional. Make sure you are still talking to CPAs, financial advisors, all the people that are legally documented to do this. I am not. This is just me giving my own opinions, and I have a guest who's going to be sharing their experience.
As a fiduciary, hopefully you guys find value in the advice, generic advice I do provide, but do not take this as specific personal advice. As a fiduciary, I would need to have kind of those one-on-one conversations with you to give you that personal advice. Feel free to reach out if you're interested. Otherwise, hopefully you find value in this kind of overview.
Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment and just say thank you to everyone for all of the support and all the messages. It truly means the absolute world to me. And I just want you to know how much fun it is to watch all of you just start having success, getting messages about how you guys are actually getting interviews now from this podcast and actually breaking into medical device sales. We've been able to help over 4 people in the last 3 days break into medical device sales. And it just is so much fun watching others achieve their dreams and helping them achieve their goals. And I just want to say, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart because we would never be here without you guys. If you guys are really interested in breaking into medical device sales, you guys can always feel free to reach out to me at Jacob McLaughlin or New to Medical Device Sales on LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn, you're definitely going to need a LinkedIn. And that's part of this process. So make sure you make one and you add us. Today's episode is going to be so much fun as I get to have a very, very good friend, almost like a brother, come on to the show, and somebody who is an absolute professional, has helped me grow, has seen me actually go from nothing to where we are today. We've grown together, and he's going to help you guys get ready for your future, how to actually build wealth. And I'm so excited to bring you my good friend Tucker. So let's get into the episode and help change your life. Welcome back to New to Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and today I get to bring you all my very, very special friend, a brother, somebody who's been with me from the very beginning of being out here in Arizona and has actually watched me go from, being a personal trainer, working the 12 to 14 hour days, because he was working 12 to 14 hour days as well, to now building both of our lives together. Today, I'm so excited to bring you all Tucker Sahnow, who is a wealth advisor and somebody who's going to be able to speak to you guys more about building wealth, being able to change your life, because most people will talk about, hey, I need to invest. I need to go for retirement. I need to get prepared for my future. And the real question is, what does that even mean? And so today I wanted to bring in a true expert, somebody who has helped me do this exact thing and be able to share their tips with you all. So without further ado, Tucker, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate it. It's been a long time coming.
Oh man. Yeah. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now.
I know.
And now you're finally in the point where you're ready to rock and roll and you've made quite a name for yourself. And now we're able to just help more and more people.
Exactly. No, look forward to hopefully providing some good advice to people and hopefully start changing some people's lives.
Oh, well, I already know that's going to happen and it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we dive too deep into it, can you just tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So originally from Oregon, as you know, born and raised in a small country town out there about 20 miles west of Portland. Fast forward to college, ended up going to Oregon State University, graduating with a degree in finance. Was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, whether it's financial analyst, start my own business, then got really plugged in partly from my own research to the advising route. Mm-hmm. Grew up with a family of business owners, very do-it-yourself, hardworking people, but really wasn't familiar with what a financial advisor was. Family didn't have a financial advisor, but early on was taught the importance of saving money, being good stewards of your money and working hard, right? I was one of those kids who, from the age of probably 8 years old, I had a job, started my own business in junior high school, paid for my college degree, graduated debt-free. So it felt like I was always good with finances, but not really sure how to apply that in terms of a full-time job. Ended up having my last year of college, a professor, and looking back, it was probably my hardest class I took in college, but he was a full-time financial advisor, right? One of those professors who wasn't really just a full-time educator. He was actually applying real-world knowledge. So he was teaching a night class once a week, got kind of plugged into, hey, this is kind of an interesting job, right? He's helping people build financial plans, going to career fairs, talking to different people, got plugged into financial advising, figured out that, hey, this is kind of the perfect fit for what I want to do, right? I want to be kind of autonomous in terms of my work, help people financially, use what I know financially to really help people, and end up getting plugged in, accepting a job post college with one of the top investment firms in the industry. Won't say the name, but they had one of the best training programs in the industry at that time. So was really driven to that, right? For a newer advisor, want to find a good training program. So plugged into that. Another good thing was they got you to choose where you wanted to build your business. Being from Oregon, I wanted to get out of the rain and clouds. Picked Scottsdale as a location that I kind of targeted to build my business. Back then I had a little Ford Ranger, loaded up my Ford Ranger with everything I owned, drove down to Scottsdale, didn't know a soul in Scottsdale.
Come on.
Spent about 6 years building my business, right? As you know, just pounding the pavement, shaking hands, doing the dirty work, the hard work, but it paid off. Spent about 6 years with that firm, had a lot of success by the end, right? I was helping train newer advisors. So had good success there, but really where the industry was going and where I wanted to be, realized I needed to be an independent fiduciary advisor. So about 1.5 2 years ago, made the jump to independence, left that firm. Long story short, now I'm an independent fiduciary wealth advisor, still here in Scottsdale. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Man, just so you guys know, this is why I love bringing Tucker on. Is just in that story, we could dive 6 different ways to
I was going to say, where do you want to go here?
just to show like where you're at and what you've been able to accomplish. And the one thing I just want to just say is like, I was a person who also had a job throughout high school, didn't really come from a lot of money. And one thing I just love your story about is like what most people will never know is, what was your high school job that actually paid for you to go?
Yeah. So back in the day, how I paid for college is I was a strawberry farmer. So
come on, man.
I think that's kind of where I got my hard work. My parents never gave us like an allowance or anything, but they provided us opportunities to work and make money. So I was one of those kids, right? Very active in sports, but also I'd get up at, 4 a.m., pick strawberries in the dark, sell strawberries till the sun came down that night, right? That's how just kind of normal work for me, right? That's how what we were taught. That's kind of how our family worked. So jumping into financial advising, different work, but it wasn't something that, was a huge hurdle for me.
No, yeah. And that's the one thing I just want to touch on is like, you just had the work ethic already ingrained in you. And that's something like, I just hope you guys can hear, just even from the beginning stories, like, this is why we get along so well, is like just being able to work. Like you did that. I worked a lot. I went hunting, all the stuff. And when I was back in Iowa, but like being able to see like what people will never understand is when you talk about, you hit the pavement, you did it, like you did door to door, you got the police called on you. You did like the long hours. You walked in 110 degrees, knocking on doors. Like you did more sales than most people listening to this, because you were doing door to door sales, selling your services, just trying to get clients. And so we're going to go into how you're going to help them with their wealth building. But what I want people to hear is really your work ethic. It doesn't matter what industry you go into. You went into an industry that was super challenging and you crushed it. We're training people and you now built your own business, had success, and you did such a good job at your past place when you started your own business. Now you're crushing it on your own. And so I just wanted to just touch on that, because I always tell you guys, like, top performers always attract, and it's like people want to be around other top performers. And I just remember, man, like when we were knowing each other, is like, if you guys don't know, I'm going to go into a little detail. We were roommates at one point, and it's like we would both leave, and like it would be Monday, and we wouldn't see each other till like Friday night or Saturday, because I'm waking up at 4 a.m. going to the gym. You're working late nights. I'm coming out late nights. And there was a lot of times we missed each other. And so I just wanted to touch on that, and we'll dive deep into what you now do. But I just wanted to say, like, your work ethic's always been there. And I think it's one of the main reasons why you're so dang successful is, like you said, you already had the work ethic. You just transferred it into a new industry to let you go have success. Yeah,
100%. That's what I always say. Like, hard work's my biggest trait. I'm not as big of a talker as you are, as you know, right? I'm not this and that, but hard work gets you a lot of places. Yeah. People respect hard work, right? I've got a lot of clients who they say the only reason they're a client is because I'm persistent, right? I'm gonna keep going because I know the value I can provide. Yeah. And if you don't see that, that's fine, right? I can't work with everybody, but it's something that you got to be confident in your abilities, and you gotta work hard with whatever you're doing.
I love that. And again, it's just knowing your value. And guys, like, just so you know why Tucker has been able to be where he's at today and be even on the podcast and talk to you and grow this business that he has. He's one of the best, most humble dudes that I've been able to have the pleasure of knowing. He works hard. He's always following up. He's very good at what he does. And like, again, that's why I appreciate working with you, is like, you don't mess around. You're going to get the best results for your people. And it's just, you want to be the best at what you do. It's like, why else are we doing this? So I want to dive a little bit deeper. Wealth advisor. What is that? Like, what do you do as a wealth advisor compared to, a lot of people will think like financial planner, right? Or a financial advisor. Like what do you do, and what are the services you offer?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different names for similar roles: financial advisor, financial planner, wealth advisor. They can be different depending on kind of where you're at, but they can also be very similar. What I provide is holistic advice. So in a nutshell, what that means, if you look at the Financial Planning Board of Standards, the 5 main areas of financial planning are going to be tax planning, estate planning, protection planning, retirement strategies, and then investment planning. I think a lot of people think of, hey, investments, which are a big part of a financial plan, of course, but if we're not talking about those other areas from a holistic perspective, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice because they're really all connected.
Yep.
So those are the 5 main areas. I'll touch on each of those individually. You don't want to go super deep. A lot of what I provide is going to be one-on-one based advice. So it's going to be personal advice. As a fiduciary, what that means is, right, legally, I'm required to provide the best recommendations for my clients, right? Do what's in the best interest of them. So can provide kind of generic advice on this podcast. That's why these are great, but they're hard to do because a lot of mine is, hey, I got to figure out your goals, figure out where you're at and give you personal advice. But starting off on tax planning, I think when you talk taxes with most people, they say, hey, I'm going to get my tax forms end of year, early first quarter. Whether you do it yourself online or you have a CPA, you're basically going to shove them the forms. And then you're going to get kicked out, hey, I owe this, or I get a refund, right? Those are basically kind of what happens. You don't really know what happens in the meantime. Big advantage and big resource of providing that holistic advice is being proactive, right? So what I do is I review client tax returns. Take a look at, hey, is what we actually did shown on the tax return? If not, right, we might need a correction, or hey, let's plan for next year. When we talk investments, what about capital gains? What about tax loss harvesting? What about, hey, how are our interest and dividends taxed? When we talk investments, which we'll touch on earlier or later, there's 3 main tax buckets we look at, right? You're going to have your taxable money, your never taxable, and then your tax deferred, right? We want to have strategies for each of these buckets. These are more kind of in-depth things that we can certainly touch on, but taxes are things that are more or less forgotten. I think there's great CPAs out there, but a lot of what happens is you just file taxes and kind of move on. So really being proactive can add a lot of value, save a lot of money in taxes, but also put you in a good spot for the future. Second one is estate planning. I think a lot of people think estate planning is, hey, for the ultra wealthy, right? People are going to have big estates, pass on money to the next generation. In reality, every one of us is going to pass away at some point. There's going to be an estate left over. It could be a very small one. It could be a large one. Could be somewhere in between. And one thing I'll note, just from a compliance perspective, right? I'm not a CPA. I'm not an estate planner. So I don't provide specific recommendations. I'm not telling you what to do, but there's a lot of things and value adds that I can do. A good financial advisor, a good wealth advisor is really the quarterback of your financial plan. Right? They're talking to your CPA, they're talking to your estate planner, they're touching on all these areas for you. But yeah, I won't go super deep on estate planning. That's something that's, as you grow your wealth, becomes more of importance. But that's something that's, most people don't have an estate plan. Everyone should. Third bucket is protection planning. So what I always like to say is we want to plan, when we're thinking of financial plan, we want to plan for the expected, but we want to prepare for the unexpected. Right? The reality is things could change that aren't in our plan and we need to adapt. And a big thing is going to be talking on insurance, right? Protection planning. It's not necessarily something that every client needs, but it should be brought up to see if it's a good fit. Easy example on insurance. Right? Let's say I work with a lot of young professionals, higher income earners. Let's say we have a young family, right? They have a couple kids, stay-at-home mom, taking care of the kids, important job, but there's really only one income coming in, right? What if something were to happen? Let's say they have a perfect financial plan, but what if something were to happen to that husband, that sole income earner? Right? That throws a huge wrench into the plan. There's potential need for income replacement. Maybe buy a term insurance policy. Once again, not specific recommendations, but that's just a potential example. So insurance should be brought up. You got to be careful because there's a lot of people online promoting insurance because it is a high commission product, right? As a fiduciary, I'm really only going to recommend it if it's needed.
Best interest of the actual client.
So that's something to consider. That's a big part of anyone's financial plan. I think fourth is going to be that retirement strategies. When we think of retirement strategies, it's how are we saving for retirement, right? You should have a number in mind, right? What does retirement look like? How much do we need to retire? Where does that money need to be in terms of those tax buckets, right? And these strategies, these conversations are one of the most enjoyed and fulfilled I get because it comes down to what is your goals? What does retirement look like for you? Maybe it's not retirement. Maybe it's I just want financial freedom and I'm going to work until I can't, which is kind of the new day and age, right? You want financial freedom versus, back in the day, it used to be, hey, I'm going to take my pension, I'm going to retire at set age, and we're done.
Yeah.
Now it's much more of a mindset. So just understanding where that client's coming from. So I think a big thing is just being specific with your goals. What are we actually working towards?
Exactly. Yeah.
If we don't have an end in mind, it's hard to know what we're doing is really worthwhile. And then finally, just the investment portion, right? So this is mostly what people think about when they think of financial planning is the investments. At the end of the day, right? You have a career, you have a job, you're working for money. We want to make sure when we earn that money that we put that money to work.
Yep.
If you look at just numbers, right? A lot of people, maybe they have extra money and they put in a savings account. We're in a high inflation environment. Average saving throughout history in terms of inflation versus what you get on a cash account is going to be about even. What that means is you're not increasing your value of your money.
No, yeah. You're lucky if it breaks even.
Exactly.
If it's not going down.
You're losing value.
Yeah,
right?
you're losing value because like you guys hear that 3% inflation every month. Well, that means your money might be going down by 3% every month if you're not fighting.
Exactly, right. If you have it in a savings account and getting a couple pennies, right, you're actually losing value even though your principal's staying the same.
Yep.
So you want to make sure it's going to depend on your goals, your time horizon, your risk perspective, which is all things we take clients through. But you want to make sure if it's a good fit that your money's actually growing for you.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at the averages of kind of the next step up, bonds on average, which are mainly bought for a little more conservative investors, maybe closer retirements, trying to live off of their money. On average, you're going to get 5 to 6% throughout history.
Yep.
Better than cash, right? Looking at the stock market where we're trying to get real appreciation, S&P 500 throughout history gets you 10%. So not telling you exactly what to do with your money, but there's ways we want to start growing our money. And when it comes to investments, we want to be more strategic in how we want these investments in this account. And those are all real personal conversations we have with clients.
Yeah.
But it's just really about making sure your money's working for you and not just sitting idle.
Exactly. And why I love that is because so many people, and I just want you guys all to hear, again, I'm going to always say, talk to your CPA. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial advisor. Go talk to all your professionals. But why I want to just even have this conversation, why we have Tucker on is like, most people never think about this. And it goes back to what I always say, like even in med device sales, people are like, I want to break into med device sales. I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's like going through life you're in an ocean in a rowboat. Yeah. And you're like getting hit by waves. And here's the thing is if you don't know where you're going and what direction, eventually you're going to hit a storm and it's going to kill you. It's going to be a big wave, right? You all have probably seen that on TikTok or whatever. But for example, if I know shore is 100 miles that way, we can at least go that way. And guess what? There's still probably going to be some storms and might get rocked off a little bit, but we at least know where it's going. The reason I'm saying that is I can just sit here and tell you, like working with so many people and like even like my family, my own personal family, it's like, oh, I just put in retirement and then I'm supposed to retire. And then what people don't understand is they get to the time of retire and they're like, yeah, you can retire for 4 years or 6 years because they actually weren't doing the right stuff. They just were like, I'm putting it away and now I should be able to retire because that's what I was told. And that's why I love having you on here. And I just want everyone to just get the value of this is guys, we're here to help you win at life and prepare yourself for life because those buckets you talked about, like most people don't think about is like, oh, taxes. And then like I get a lot of new college kids and they're like, what's taxes? And I'm like, oh yeah, you get in commission. Your commission's 40% taxed. Well, what does that mean? You make $100,000 right away. You lost $40,000 to the government because they said, give me mine. Right. And they're like, well, that's not fair. Welcome to life, my friends. Right. And then like, again, don't take my numbers with it. Like there's all different numbers. Cause whenever I do that, everyone's going to attack you on the internet and say, well, it's actually this number. And then it works like this. But like what people don't understand is like, you know, like the wealthy will actually talk about this. It's not how much money you actually make. It's how much you keep. Right. And so like, that's what I've been really learning. And what has been cool working with Tucker is like, Tucker's been with me when I had literally no money. And I read a book called Extreme Money Makeover. And I was like, I should actually save some money because instead of getting the average car payment of $500, like most Americans had, and I actually just saved that and I put that in from, I think it was like the 25 to 63. By the end of it, I'd have over $1 million. And as somebody who came out here with $1,200 to my name, broke as heck, I was like, for $500 a month, I could be a millionaire.
Exactly.
And I was like, it started just getting me really interested. And then that's when we started talking. And then I gave you, even when I was making no money, man, I was giving you money because I'm like, this can help my savings. And so it's like the habits. And that's why I want you guys to go, and we're going to dive deep into this, but it's the habit you have and why this all plays into it. Because again, the tax bucket, the actual investing, what are you doing? Because so many people will be like, Robinhood's massive. And they're like, I'm just going to throw money in. And it's like, is it making you money or losing you money? And like, then we're going to go into talking about, 401ks and hey, you'll hear 6% match and all this stuff with med device companies. And we'll dive deep into that. I'm so excited to have you on, and why we're doing this is because what you said is the number one thing I want you all to hear is being proactive. It's no different than when we're trying to get in the career. Even when you're in med device sales, you want to hit quota. If quota's $1 million, okay, what is that per quarter? Well, that's 250. Okay, what is that per month? All right, let's break that down. What is that per day that we actually have to do to hit? It's exactly what you just said. If I want to retire or I want to have financial freedom, what's that number? That's what you have helped me realize.
Yes, and what I'll say too, going back to some numbers, is everyone knows they want financial freedom, they want to retire, right? But only about 1/3, stats tell you, 1/3 of people feel somewhat confident in their ability to retire one day. What that means is the other 2/3 either have no idea, or they have no savings, no plan. They never talk to somebody. And I know your audience is a lot of young professionals. That number even drops even more for young professionals, right? They don't know what it takes to retire.
No.
And they probably haven't thought about it.
They don't think about it. Or I hear the other one, it's hopeless. Right? Because, the baby boomers bought their house for $80,000 and I just guess I'm going to be broke forever. I actually was just on the pool top and that's what I heard someone talking about. And I'm like, good Lord, if you only knew, if you knew my friend Tucker, right? Like the conversation is that it's like being able to, that's why we're doing this, is for you all to like start thinking a little bit different, like actually start pre-planning, because it's actually not that hard. It just does take some work. It takes you being proactive. And so I guess, what are some of the most misconceptions that you actually see inside the industry, and then we can kind of jump back into those buckets?
Yeah, I think there's definitely quite a few out there. I think I'll just hit on a few of them. But one of the biggest ones I see is people buying things, right? It's kind of the saying, they buy things they don't need or want with money they probably shouldn't spend to impress people. Yeah, or don't have to impress people they don't like, right?
Yep.
And I think we see it all the time in Scottsdale here. I've saw it with friends graduating college, right? They graduate college with student loan debt. What do? They get a big car payment.
Yep.
Then they talk to a mortgage loan officer. They buy a condo or something, probably at an amount they shouldn't afford.
Yep.
So you have people buying out of their means, creates a snowball effect, right? You have what I like to call here in Scottsdale, the Scottsdale millionaires. There's a lot of wealth, a lot of successful people here. Yep. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people I've met, a lot of people I see. They're driving the G-Wagons. They're driving the nice cars. They're living in a good home. But you talk to them and they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
They have credit card debt. They're not necessarily successful when it comes to finances.
100%.
So I think that's a big derailer, because, right, you either never learn from that once you start that, or you do, but you're so far behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, you're 100%. And the one thing I want to touch on that is like, this is the number one thing I can say, because we see it all the time. We work with a lot of people also, even like where we're at, like you see it as well, people trying to front. But like the number one thing I can always say is every single person that's always in a bunch of debt or goes and buys the car, does whatever they want and goes into it, I always hear the exact same: I want or I deserve.
Yeah.
It's every single time. Oh, I deserve it because I went to college, or I deserve it because I worked hard. And it's like, you actually don't even have the money, right? And it's like, or I want, and I'm like, and I want $1 bajillion, right? Yeah. It's like, but that's what people do. And then they go emotional. And it's why credit card debt is so high and everything, because we want what we want now. But can you actually financially afford it? And like a rule of thumb I've always thought about, especially being so broke, was, could I buy this and not ever think about it again? And like the money doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
If it does, I'm not buying it right now. I love that you said that. And the number two thing is just going back, like you said, it's everywhere. It could be California, it could be Arizona, New York, whatever it is. But the amount of human beings, especially that we see here, that I know that are buying tables in Old Town Scottsdale, dropping $5,000 a night. They drive a leased G-Wagon. They live in an apartment studio that they're barely making. And I'll talk to these people and it's like, they don't even have $4,000 to their name.
Oh yeah.
And it's, if they got fired, they can't afford the next payment. Mm-hmm. Like even where we have our studio in our office, it's a very beautiful place and we're lucky. I talk to the people downstairs. They're kicking people out at a record high because people are losing their business and are losing their jobs and they can't afford the rent. And it's because they're trying to flex, to be like, look at me. And it's why this Instagram, TikTok culture, whatever it is, are you really wealthy or are you just trying to show it? And the thing I just want to make a statement is, the thing that I've noticed with the wealthiest human beings that I've ever met is you would never know they're wealthy. And it's like the poor people try to impress to look rich, to make a feeling, but it's like the rich people don't have to because they're just that rich. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to like put that out there because you're 100% right. We see it all the time. I talk to these people and it's just like absolutely crazy. Like I can just say is like, I know friends that were living way better than me and I was like making 10 times the more money than them. And I'm like, oh yeah, you drive a nicer car than I do. You live in a better place. You go out on nicer dinners. You do all the stuff, which I'm not saying don't do the finer things, but then they're also the person who's like, I hate my job. I can't leave because I have all these bills and now they got to do it to get by.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, is kind of attached to that is, right, you might make $100,000 one year and then 10 years later you're earning $500,000. And it's about managing what's your in and out expenses. Because I've met people who make $500,000 a year and they're well worse off than someone making $50,000 a year. I've met. So it really has nothing to do with income. It has to do with what you're doing when you have basically the no income.
Yep.
Not when you double your income, you say, then I'll save, then I'll do it. Oh. No, it's your habits basically get amplified as you go.
Preach it one more time. I just got to share this. My mentor, when we first met, he said this. He's like, if you're not happy at $5,000 a month, you won't be happy at $50,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And it was just like one of those things. And exactly what you're saying is like, people even talk about like rich people. And I've learned this to be true for myself. It's like, you just become who you really are. All money does is amplify it, right? So if you're not a nice person, you just become more not a nice person. But if you're a giver, you just become a bigger giver. And so I just love that you said that because that's why I'm so excited to have you is like, we have people that are, some people might be under the age of, 25 or even 35 or 40, wherever age you are, but it's never too early. But to get you those, hey, even if you're making only, $3,000 a month, what are you saving? What are you being able to invest? It's those habits. So when you do make $20,000 a month, are you doing the exact same thing? Right. And so I love that you said that right there.
Yeah. And a couple areas too, which the CFP board is added to the main areas of financial planning, which very important, we won't touch on, is the cash and debt strategy management, right? A lot of people, right? We need emergency savings.
Yeah.
What is it? It's going to be dependent on the person.
Yep.
A lot of people have debt, right? There's good debt, there's bad debt, there's somewhere in between, but having a strategy for that too is going to kind of impact your expenses in and out. But going on to some misconceptions too, another one is people say, hey, I'm working at a Fortune 500 company or I'm working at this company. I have a 401k, right? I'm good. I got this match. I'm good. I got 401k. I don't need anything else. 401ks, right? They're great to be a complement for your overall plan, right?
Yes.
They're great if you have profit share too. They're great if you have a match. They're great just in terms of, hey, we have an option to do tax deferred growth. We can do a Roth option, right? There's great strategies. There's great options with 401ks. But they're not meant to be an end-all, be-all, right? Yep. You need to have things that complement it, whether it's personal IRAs, whether it's brokerage accounts. I know a lot of people I talk to, they're like, hey, I'm going to retire early, right? Well, guess what? 401ks have limitations when you can take it out, right? You need to have plans in place of, hey, brokerage accounts tend to be some of the larger accounts people have who want to early retire. You can touch it whenever. So there needs to be strategies in place beyond just a 401k and a 1-800 number attached to that. I know a lot of people say, hey, I got somebody I can call if I need to. I got a 401k, I'm good.
Yep.
But they also probably don't know how their 401k is invested. One thing with 401ks is there tends to be very limited investment options inside of it. So, right, you're not necessarily exposed to potentially the portfolio that maybe you should be or could be on other accounts that you use to complement it. So 401ks, they're great. Don't get me wrong. But they're not, just because you have a 401k does not mean you're set for retirement.
No, yeah.
Specifically, right, if you're just putting money in, you don't necessarily know where it's going, and it's just kind of sitting there.
Yep, that is such a good point because you actually taught me that, and we'll go deeper after this in more of what I've done and what we do. But you taught me that because I was at the company that I previously was a part, and we saw the options they gave us, and then you showed me like the options that you could offer if I had my own thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, and that we're able to see it. And so again, it was just being able to know the different options are out there.
Yeah,
and like that's what I want you guys all to hear is like, again, what most people do is, again, they don't want to think about it. Like I can just sit here and tell you, I have family members. Like I'll never forget when one of my family members met you. They're like, what do you do? And you told them, and they're like, oh my gosh, that must be stressful. And it's like, you're like, no, it's not that stressful. It's what I do and I like it. But it's like money just stresses people out. They don't want to think about it. They're just like, this is what I was told to do. I'm just going to put it away. I'm not going to think about it. But those are the same people who are like, 50, 60, 65, and they're like, I thought I could retire forever, and they can't.
Yeah, I always compare it. It's not a like comparison, but I always say, hey, having a financial advisor, going to the financial advisor is like going to the dentist, right? Everybody kind of knows they need to go, but they would rather not go. They'd rather put it off. And a lot of people do put it off.
Yeah.
Another misconception is the biggest thing is time is your biggest asset. I think a lot of people I meet, specifically young professionals, they'll say, hey, I'm young, I'm 25, I'm 30, maybe even 35. All right, I'll push it out, right? I'm getting married, I'm moving, I'm having kids. What's another 5 years going to do to me, right? The biggest thing when it comes to investing, the biggest asset is going to be time, right? Time invested. That's the power of compounding interest.
Come on.
Just to throw some numbers at you, I know you mentioned $500 a month. Let's say we save $500 a month. So if someone's 30 years old, they save $500 a month. Let's say they want early retirement or they want to retire at 60. Save $500 a month for those 30 years. So 30 to 60. Let's say you get a 10% return. You have close to $1 million saved up now just by saving $500 a month. I believe $180,000 is what you're putting in. So you basically 4 or 5x your money just by letting it sit and grow. Now let's say, hey, I'm 25 or I'm 30. I'm going to wait another 5 years, right? I don't need to start yet. Just by delaying that, right, by 5 years, you're still going to be invested, saving for 25 years. That balance drops almost in half, right? That instead of $1 million, you have less than $600,000 just by waiting 5 years.
Yep.
The flip side is, let's say, hey, I'm 25, I'm going to start early. Or maybe I'm 30 and I'm going to save for the next 35 years. Instead of $1 million, right, you could have 1.6, 1.7 sitting there. So that shows the power of the biggest asset is time in the market.
Come on.
And a lot of people say, hey, it's time in the market, not trying to time the market, best time to buy all that. It's just, hey, let's get dollar cost averaging going.
Yep.
Let's do it earlier, the better. Even if it's, hey, I can only do $100 a month. Yep. I can only do 500. My income will grow. Maybe I'm doing 1,000, 2,000. So the biggest thing is don't push it off.
No.
I've never met a client that said, man, I wish I would have started with you 5 years from now. But I've had a lot of clients say, man, I wish I'd met you 10 years ago. Man, I would have wished I could have told my kid about you 10 years ago, or whatever it is.
Yep.
You'll never regret starting or at least having that conversation early. Yep. But you can't get back time, right?
No. And that's why I wanted all to hear this, is because that's what changed my life, is being able to hear that. And at the time I'm 23, I was making, like, I think my first year I made $24,000 a year. If you guys don't know the math, that's $2,000 in Phoenix. I'm living with roommates, making no money. I was able to actually personally save $12,000 that year. So I lived off $12,000 my first year living out here. Just, you know how it is. You were there, like, we're just like roughing it. But the reason I'm just saying that is then I realized, oh my gosh, if I start putting $500 away, which I did, and let me just sit here and tell you, people will tell you to play percentages. But at that time I was like, this is a massive thing to me. And I know as my income grows, it will go. So I did that. And just like you said, now for me, it's like, okay, as we make more, that's just part of it. It's just a percentage that comes out. But knowing exactly what you said is, I was 23, here we are. I'm almost 30. And like, it's blinked and now we're here. And then it's like, all that's happened is I've just done it. And now it's like, when we look at our accounts, it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. But one thing, can you kind of just touch on, because I know this is what's going to get really people thinking, is we talk about this in med device sales, right? If the compounding effect, hey, you talking to people for the first 6 weeks, guess what? It's not wasted time, because you talk to people, they're thinking about you. This is all the stuff. And welcome to having a bunch of calls after 6 weeks because you did 6 weeks of work. Mm-hmm. Can you just kind of talk about that in the money aspect of like, what do you mean? Like, how can it go from 5 years of being like almost $1 million or over $1 million to not even $600K by like 5 years? What is compounding and what does it actually do?
Yeah. So think of the kind of the exponential curve, right? So you got your XY axis, the exponential curve, right? The longer you go on that curve, the steeper it gets. That's why, I have clients come to me and they're 45 years old and it's like, hey, I'd love to help you, but there's less I can do because you have 15 years or 20 years till retirement. If I can work with someone early on, that curve, we can reach farther along on that curve. Because basically what it is say you have $10, it grows to $20. Now you're getting growth on top of growth, and it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? That snowball goes down the hill, it gets big quick.
Yeah.
Because it's rolling on top of the rolls, and it's basically compound interest, right? There's a reason they call it the eighth wonder of the world, right? It's how normal people, everyday people become wealthy.
I absolutely love that. And that's what changed me, because again, don't quote me, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a financial advisor, but I remember somebody telling me on average in the market, your money that you have invested in there will double every 7 years, right? So like what I want you guys to think about is like, if you have, let's just say you're 30 and you have $100,000 by the time you're 30, well, by 37, you have 200,000. And then by 44, that turned into 400,000. And then by, 51, that's now 800,000. And so like, that's what I don't ever think about. And that's, again, guys, off the principle. That's not you continuing to add to it. And so that's what people will miss. And that's why I absolutely love this is, again, you guys, it's not just about med device sales. It's about giving you guys financial freedom, because that's what everyone's chasing. Everyone's chasing, hey, we do this job, we want to be able to help people. But it's like, if you don't have the time to do what you enjoy, what are we doing this with? And then again, most people don't ask the question of, that was one of the first comments or questions you asked me is, how much do you want to make a month? And I'm like, that's a great question, right? Because again, it's planning for the future. So I appreciate you saying compound, because hopefully this is getting somebody who's younger to be like, wait, I could do that. Mm-hmm. Like we have people in our course, and it literally is what makes me, I just got somebody who was out of college. Their family's never made more than $60,000 a year, mom or dad. And I always just tell people that's a mindset that goes with it. Not that it's I'm not talking bad about anybody, but guys, like the mindset of a $60,000 a year to $200,000 a year to $2 million a year, it's different. That's what it is. It's mindset. And so the reason I'm saying that is when you start actually seeing that, and then we can actually help somebody who we were able to go and they are now out of college working 100 hours all the time. And now they're making $41,000 a year. We get them in at $90,000 a year at 22. It's crazy. It's like we've had people, my favorite stories is the one who's not making any money, comes out of college, 22, 23, comes in at over 100K, and now they have no debt. And I'm like, welcome to being a millionaire, my friend. Mm-hmm. Because if you do the right things, which we always, I get on call, ahead of everybody. I'm like, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to help you through this, because my God, I want you to be a millionaire. That's what just gets me excited. So I appreciate you going into detail about compound interest, because like you said, eighth wonder of the world, but most people don't even know what the heck it is and what we talked about. And when you start throwing numbers like that, everybody that I talk to always thinks, yeah, that's great for them, but that can't happen to me.
Yeah. And on that point too, I think another misconception is people think of a financial advisor, wealth advisor, and they're like, hey, that's for the millionaires. That's for the ultra wealthy. That's for not me, right? I'm 30 years old. I have X to my name. I'm making this.
Yep.
And I think that's true in some cases. I mean, if you look at the average age of the advisor, it's an aging industry. It's almost 60 years old is the average age. So
wow.
Right. First off, you don't want an advisor that old, specifically when you're a young professional, right? That advisor is going to retire. Who knows who you'll be working with.
Yeah, they're not going to be with you for your journey.
Exactly.
Right? Like from why I'm with you is we're going to be together forever.
Yeah, ideally you want an advisor around your age, not too much older. Those older advisors, right, they're not going to take on that 30-year-old. So maybe they do have X minimum of assets you have to have, X minimum of dollars you have to make per year. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in this, and hopefully all your audience is right, interested in their financial future and for their family, future generations, but try to find an advisor who's motivated, an advisor who's younger. Specifically, my clientele, I think it's probably similar to your students, right? It's motivated professionals and motivated business owners. Those are the two aspects I say.
Yep.
Now you'll notice it's not, hey, you got to make X dollars per year. You got to make this. I can have a 15, 20-minute conversation with anyone and tell if they're a good fit for my practice, right? Yeah. Tell if they're motivated. Same thing, right? You can tell if, hey, I'm not going to onboard this student, right? They're not a good fit. They're not going to follow this successful booklet.
Yep.
So I think find an advisor who wants to work with someone younger, right? Specifically me, right? I onboard a lot of young professionals, right? I love working with those people in the wealth accumulation phase.
Yep.
Right, I'm younger myself. I'm going to be doing this for a long time. Hopefully I pass this business down to my kids. They're doing it with my clients' kids and vice versa. So I think there's certainly advisors who won't take on young professionals. But if I can get someone, man, when they're 30 years old, the value I can provide is 10x someone that, hey, I love working with retirees. I have retiree clients. I have pre-retiree clients. But the value I can add from someone who's 30 years old is going to be 10x. Dude. You know, what can happen from somebody if, hey, I'll wait till I'm 60 and then I'll get an advisor.
Yeah, you do life-changing work. And why I'm sitting here saying that and why I love what you just said is you're betting on the jockey, not all the stuff. And that's what we talk about, right? You also run your business. And you only want to work with those kind of people, right? And that's no different than sales guys. Not everyone's a prospect. I always say that. But like truly what you're saying, man, is like, you took a shot on me when I'm 23, 24, and we were both getting started. And it's like to where I'm at today. Like one of my favorite things is when I see the quarterly meeting with you and I'm like, hey, I get to come hang out. But it's like, we sit there and talk about it. I always bring it up. It's I'm like, man, remember when we were doing this? remember when we lived here? Remember when life was like this? And now where we're at today, it's fun now to be able to be like, this is truly life-changing. And not only that, you're helping me plan for the future and the future as we're going to keep doing life together and know it's only going to grow. And that's why you take the shot on these younger people, because if you, like we talk about, when I first moved out here 7 years ago, made 24 grand my first year. We're in a little different boat now because I was hungry and I wanted to change and I wanted to get in med device sales and made that in a month with commission checks. Like it's just life-changing to go and you're able to help people get there.
Yeah, exactly. And I say one of the last misconceptions, which podcasts are great. Don't get me wrong. I love your podcast, but specifically in the financial world, there's a lot of, quote unquote personalities out there. I think they're spewing advice, right? Some of it is good general advice. But if you look at 90% of these personalities who you might be taking advice from, or you see them on your feed, whatever it may be, keep in mind, they're probably not actually advisors, right? They're not credentialed. They're not actually held to certain standards like a fiduciary would be. So they can say, hey, do this, follow this. This is what worked for me. Maybe it's good advice. Maybe it's not. I would just be careful. There's a lot of talking heads out there. Some of them are good. I'm not taking away from those, but there's a lot that I've seen that I wish they weren't out there, because the power of good financial advice, right, can be life-changing. Yeah. But bad financial advice, or maybe just not personal advice, can certainly derail you. Yep. So just be mindful, right? I'm not giving specific advice on this podcast because I am credentialed. I am a fiduciary. I am a full-time advisor working with clients on a day-to-day. Yep. But there's a lot of media. There's a lot of opinions out there that they're opinions, right? They're not backed by anything. Exactly. So just be careful on that aspect. I want you to get financial advice. I want you to reach out to a professional, whether it's myself or someone else. But just be careful where that's coming from. Yeah, that's so good, because you're a true professional. And like, guys, this is what it is, where I'm like, I'm not a financial advisor or whatever. I can start spitting numbers at you and saying whatever, and people are gonna be like, okay, is this good? Is this not? Right? And I think that's the thing out there compared to like what you said is why Tucker has to give you such general advice, is because he is a professional. He is licensed. And that's what I think I'm so excited. And that's why I am so excited to have him on the show, is it's not just an idea or just opinion. It's, you're a professional and truly a professional at this. And I just say that just to anybody who like might think, okay, what does that mean? It's always the joke of like the fitness stuff, right? There's a lot of fitness advice out there, and there's some people who give it, and there's some people who will be like, tape your mouth, drink through a straw and do that, and you'll be skinny, right? Like, it's like, okay, where are we really getting to? And so that's why it really matters to do your homework. And just get with somebody who actually has your best interest, because one thing I want to say, you're not going to have to say, but I'll say, is a lot of these personalities that you guys might talk to, go check out when they tell you to go get an app. There's a good chance they get a kickback from that. There's a good chance that they might be an affiliate. Now they make money to tell you go use something, right? And so like, it's what's the vested interest of that? Are they really trying to help you, or is it now a paycheck that you use it? So I'm just, again, always wanting the best interest for you all. And I think one thing what we can kind of dive into, because again, those are huge misconceptions and we see them all the time. And I'm so glad you're able to bring that, because I know it's bringing so much value. But I think one thing that we can kind of do is maybe talk, you can't say specific stuff, but because I'm not a professional and we're just running around doing whatever the heck we want with a mustache, is talk about kind of my journey and what I've been able to do, going from being, personal training when I had nothing, and like, what did I actually invest into? Now I'm working with you and I'm doing certain things, and what I'm personally doing to be able to, while I was in med device sales, what we did in med device sales, but also I did other things. It wasn't just relying on a 401k. And so I think that's one thing that maybe we can just kind of touch on, and I can talk to. And you can just kind of give your input of maybe the general of why I kind of go over what I did. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. So I think, guys, one thing that really changed my life is like really learning about a Roth IRA. And real quick, can you just give a quick summary of a Roth IRA? Yeah. The Roth IRA, basically what it is after-tax money. So money that's not a deduction that tax year. It's after tax, hits your bank account, hard to deduct taxes if you're on W-2 payroll. Then you contribute it to a Roth IRA. The great thing about that is specifically for younger people, those with more time horizon, or those that think their tax bracket might be more favorable for that strategy in the future, is that money grows tax-free inside that account. Yep. So say it's in there for 30 years, going back to that example of $500 a month, that $1 million you have is 100% tax-free. Yep. Versus, going back to another problem we're seeing in the industry is a lot of people retiring, specifically boomers right now, have what we call a ticking tax time bomb. They have a very large 401k. Maybe it's 5 million, right? Great problem to have $5 million in there, but they put it in all pre-tax. the opposite of a Roth. So when they pull that out, 100% ordinary income tax is owed on that. So maybe they had 5 million, but they actually have 3 million depending on tax rates.
Yep.
Versus that Roth being young. Let's say you had that 5 million in a Roth, 100% tax free.
Yep.
So I think you got to be careful because it's hard to sometimes say no to, hey, let's do pre-tax. Let's do the opposite of Roth because we're going to get a deduction that tax year. But you got to run that analysis. A lot of people should benefit from doing Roth.
Yep.
Don't worry about the tax deduction for 1 year. Let's get it for the next 30 years. It's in that account because of tax-free growth.
Yep.
So hopefully that makes sense, but that's a Roth.
Yeah, well, no, that's huge. And that, why I want you guys to hear what you just heard is this is what I always hear, especially in the poor mindset. And again, guys, you are talking to somebody who came from nothing, was poor, like was on an air mattress to where we're at today. Is you have to switch your mindset of a poor mindset to a wealth mindset. And the reason I'm just saying that is if anyone's listening, they're like, well, if I had $5 million, I don't care. And I would be happy with 3. And it's like, until you're there. Until you've worked hard and you put the money in and now you made 5 mil and you just give 2 mil away for no reason.
Yeah, and everybody can get there too.
Exactly. And anybody can get there, right? But by just having a professional to give you this guidance because you know what you're doing, you can be putting your money no matter what, giving the money either way. You're getting 2 different results, what you just said. And so going through being a personal trainer, I didn't have anything. I was my own 1099. I was doing my own thing. So I started with a Roth. Because I was just like, hey, this is what I'm going to start out at 23 years old. I'm going to start doing a Roth. I'm going to just start putting money away for retirement in the future. And then what happened is then I got very fortunate of being able to get into medical device sales, which was great, which is a 401k, right? I was with a great company. They're going to do vested stocks. They're going to match 6%. So again, what did I do? I maxed it all out, but then I also did other plans on top of it, because again, this is where I was thinking about my future and not just thinking about it. And the one thing I want to personally say is people will be like, oh, just don't worry about it. If you get stock options, you invest in the stocks, it's always great. Bam. When I ended up leaving, we lost money. Like I lost money because when I was investing in the stock was higher. And when I left, the stock was lower. And right. So the money I put into that actually was negative. So the money I actually put in was lost money. Then as you guys all know, I was still personal training on the side. So it just allowed me to have more options. And I'm a big person on like, hey, if you can have an LLC, do something on the side, it could benefit you. But again, talk with your professionals, your CPAs, everybody, whatever it's going to be, because there'll be taxes that come out. But then when I went into another company, same thing, right? At that time we had our different companies, right? And now we're being able to do our Roth. We had a 401k. We ended up doing a brokerage account. We ended up doing where we do, I think something that everyone should know about is like a high yield savings account is what we're in. And so can you just kind of explain what a high yield savings account is?
Yeah, basically what it is we want to make sure that all of our clients have liquidity, right? And that's usually cash on hand. Yep. So each person's going to be different. Maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Businesses, maybe we want more or less in savings. But basically what it is, hey, we want money in cash. Let's make sure we're getting the top yield. Since we do want to leave it in cash, we know inflation's kind of burning against that principle. So a high yield savings account is basically trying to maximize. We want to leave it in cash. Let's get our best interest rate. So a lot of money market funds right now earning above 5%.
Huge.
That would be potentially like a high yield savings account.
Love that. And that's massive, guys, because what I want you to really hear is like, if you just put your money in a bank, you're probably going to get a couple pennies. No matter how much money you have, you'll be lucky to get a couple pennies. But compared to if you actually have a high yield savings account, you put in $1,000, you'll actually get $50 back, right? Which again, in the small term doesn't seem like that much, but make that $1,000 make $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, whatever it is, right? So, but it's liquid cash. You're not just putting it in the bank. And so like, these are just like the little tips that most people don't think about and how you're able to use your strategies. And then one thing that has been very big with me and Tucker is just being able to have what's your monthly number? Like what's our goal? You and I would sit and you're like, hey, what do you actually want to retire at? What do you want your lifestyle to be like? What do you want you actually to do with your life? Do you want to be able to give back? Do you want to like all these things? And then you help me actually plan that. And not only are we just talking about, making the money and putting it in, it's like, hey, what are we actually looking at as a retirement plan? Is there going to be real estate in there? Is there going to be actually like, hey, how do we beat taxes? So you're not putting in, like we said, yeah, you can make the money, but if you're paying it all to taxes, who cares, right? So there's all these strategies that actually come with it. And that's why you're such a huge asset to my team, is like, because again, you get on the calls with my CPAs and our team and being able to be like, hey, what's going to be the best strategy? And that's what most people miss is that, guys, like, I don't only want you to break into med device sales and crush it. It's like, I'm a very big proponent of like, hey, can you come in and can you do multiple things? Can you have different businesses? Like there's a lot of people who come in and they'll do real estate on the side and then they'll do the investing. and they're just being diversified in the portfolios. And then what do they do with it? And so I think that's one thing for me that I wanted to just share is like, hey, having multiple different accounts, being able to go and do that. We're meeting on a quarterly basis, talking about, hey, what were the returns? What are you doing? What's the actual plan? And what do we need to change anything? What's the market looking like? And that's what I wanted to just share with you all is like why I use Tucker, because most people will be like, oh, why do you need a wealth advisor? Why do you need a financial planner, whoever it is? And it's like, you do this for a living. This is what you love. And this is what you're really good at. You know what I'm not doing? Looking at the market, studying the market, doing the stuff like what I'm good at. Medical device sales, what I'm good at, running businesses, what I'm good at, I'm going to focus on that. And then I'm going to get a professional. Two things I'm always going to sit here and say. The number one thing I'm always going to hear from kickback from people is the fees though, Jacob, the fees of working with these people. Number one, like if that's the fee to like actually have knowledge and grow your money way more than you would by yourself, it's worth it all day. Number two, I will sit here and always say this is like, you're a great friend. I want you to win. I want to support your business. But again, I support your business and you're only supporting me and making my life easier. So I just wanted to state that because so many people will be like, why would I do this? Oh, I don't need to do that and all the stuff. But it's like, yeah, could I look on YouTube? Could I do stuff? Did I do crypto? Yeah, we've talked about this. Was I in crypto and doing all the stuff? But what happened? I became obsessive. Then I'm doing that. And that's taking me away what I'm really good at. And I can just give somebody who knows what they're doing with and help change my life.
Yeah. A couple of things I'll say on that too is the fee conversation. What I always say is the most successful people, right? They're worried about the return, not necessarily the fee, right? What's the value I'm getting from that? The value's way outperforming the fee, then they could care less what that fee is.
Come on.
It's all about the value you provide. The other thing is the most successful people, they delegate, right? And I think your audience is going to be in a really good spot, right? You're putting them in a great position, great incomes, great financial future with incomes for their family. And they're in a great position where they can start delegating their financial life. You know, it's a very complex industry. Markets change daily. Taxes change, every year. Same reason why I'm very knowledgeable about taxes, but I'm hiring a CPA to do it, right? I can certainly file my taxes better than most people, but I'm going to hire a CPA, right? It's going to save me time. To put in my business, save me time to go golfing, whatever it may be. Same thing with, hey, simple explanation, right? I can change my oil, but I'm going to take it to an auto mechanic.
And pay an extra $7 or $12 to get it done.
I think another one too, when I got into the industry, what I realized is there's a lot of investment wholesalers I work with. They're one of the most knowledgeable people I know on the markets. All they do is talk to advisors about the markets, about specific investments. Everyone I talk to has a financial advisor. Right? They're way more knowledgeable than 99% of the population on markets, on investments. That's what they do every single day. But it's not the advising part they do. They structure the investment specifically. And they themselves hire a wealth advisor.
Come on.
So I think that tells you a lot. Just like anything, you get to certain points, right? Time is limited. Do you want to be an expert or try to be an expert in a lot of areas? Or do you want to, hey, you're an expert in the medical device field. I'm going to offload this.
Come on.
I'm going to focus on my career with my free time, or I'm going to spend it with time, family, friends, whatever it may be. So I would just encourage you, hey, you guys are going to start making great money in this career. It's time to start maximizing other areas of your life. And that's where kind of delegation comes in. I
want you all to hear that. And this is the biggest thing that's going to change all of your lives is what you just said, is being able to focus on what you're good at and then delegating everything. So what I want you all to think about is, like I always hit this, is two things. Number one, you've heard me say it on the podcast, the difference between rich people and poor people. And I can say this because I literally lived it, and I still have family members that go through this, and I can say I'm on both ends and I see both ends. The difference between rich people and poor people is poor people ask how much, rich people ask what's my return. A poor person will never pay $1,000 because it's too much money. A rich person happily pays $10,000 if they know they'll make $10,000. What's the fees compared to what's my return? Have no problem paying fees when the return's way higher than the fees ever would be and what I need to worry about. That's number one thing I want you to see. But also going into like, hey, you want to be really wealthy? What do the wealthiest people do? They get experts. Like, this is what I love. Why do we do what we do? You guys have never broke into medical device sales, or you haven't performed, or you want to grow and do stuff. You know what I've done? That. You know what I have? I have a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach. The best of the best have coaches. And that's what I always watch is the people who are poor, the people who aren't top performers, they all think they're going to do it on their own. But what the top have figured out is they can't do it on their own. And that 1% or that 0.1% will make them that much better. And then you want to change your life. it goes back to everything you just said. Delegate. Let me blow all of your minds. You're with a med device company. You know why they pay you 150 to 200 grand? Because they make way more money off you than the money they just paid you, aka they delegated, and now they profit. And it's like, same thing, right? Like I remember hearing this, and this may take people a certain way, but I heard once you make over about $350,000 a year, it doesn't make any sense to do something you don't like. And what I mean by that is, if I don't want to clean the house, I can hire somebody for $150 or $200 a week. I don't want to do landscaping here in Arizona, $100 to $200. You don't want to clean the pool, $200. Because what people don't understand is, like, for example, if you're making, $20,000, $30,000 a month, if you just focus on your craft, you can pay all the stuff. Like you said, people will be like, well, why wouldn't you actually you want to go golfing, but why would you do that? Because you enjoy it, you do it, and you can delegate it. And that's what most people miss, is they try to be experts in everything. And guess what? You're never going to be an expert in everything if you're trying to be an expert in everything. It's like the people who tell me they're running 7 businesses. I'm like, good luck. Because you know what you just told me? That you suck in 7 businesses. Like there's no way. You have to go all in, especially if you're going in competitors. And so that's like the thing, is like go all in on your one thing, and then being able to, hey, I'm really good at business, or I'm really and also, what do I enjoy? What I'm good at and what I enjoy, and I'm going to do that. And then everything else, like I love learning about taxes. I love learning about, because I've seen the wealthy of the wealthy and been able to learn from them. But you know what I don't know? I know that I scratched the surface reading a 12-hour book of audiobook, but I can go talk to you, and you have years on years of knowledge. And then you have mentors that you talk to, and you talk to professionals, and it's like, yeah, let's just make our life easier. So I wanted to share that to people, because that's like the real difference in mindset. As most poor people and people who will never really be financially really free, is they're always like, I have to do it. I have to do everything. I got to save $1 here. And it's like, they grab a penny to step over $1. Like it's, how about you actually just focus on the skill, what you're trying to do, and then actually go find somebody who's really dang good at it and have them help you. And everybody wants to do it on their own. And that's the biggest mistake I see everybody do, is they try to do it on their own, learn it on their own, which you can start at, but then you need to go get help.
Yeah. And I think there's extremes to it, right? It's not like you need to hire out everything.
Yeah, preach that.
Certainly things specifically once you get to certain income levels where, man, there's a lot of value that can be added to actually offloading that. Not only getting more value, but you're freeing up time. So it's being mindful, right? If you're just starting out, maybe it doesn't make sense. And I always tell people, man, if they reach out, there's really 2 ways it goes. I either one, give you some free advice and say, hey, here's some free advice, call me in a year, or here's another professional that you should work with. Or maybe it makes sense for us to work together, right? There's really no strings attached.
Love that. That's huge. And I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to ask where they can find you, because what you just said is going to be huge, and I want you all to be able to find them. But the one thing I want to ask you is, you work with millionaires, you work with people who have a lot of money, and you work with people who are just getting started, right? Can you just kind of tell us some of the attributes and some of the key things that you see in probably some of the wealthiest people you've ever met or ever worked with?
I think, one, I'm lucky to have a lot of humble, wealthy people. I think you get to a certain point, and like you're saying, you're such an expert in that field that they're fine admitting that, hey, I don't know everything in this field, and I'm not going to try to know it. Versus people early on, right? They're going to be like, hey, I don't want to pay anybody. I'm going to try to do it all myself. Kind of like what we're just talking about. So they're very humble. They're not afraid to admit where they don't have the most knowledge, but they also focus on different things, right? Like what you're saying, they're not focused necessarily on the fee. I'm always transparent with fees, but they're focused on the value add. They're focused on what they get out versus maybe what they have to put in. Same thing with working hard, right? People put an investment into your program, but that's not necessarily why they look at your program. They look at it, what do they get on the other side? So I think it's just different mindsets, and a lot of it changes over time too, right? A lot of those millionaires, they started out with a different mindset, and maybe it switched at certain points, but that's just kind of from a high level, what you notice.
Yeah, no, and that's huge. And I appreciate you sharing with that, because again, it is something that's like, especially going from where you you do change, right? Because you can't be the same person when you're living with 3 roommates and making $30,000 a year to, and now in med device sales, working with surgeons, doing a different life. But one thing I just love that you just said is, again, just being able to be coachable. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen people is coachable or humble, knowing that they don't know everything. And it's like, that's one of the things I see with the true experts. When they know something, they're going to jam on it. But when they don't know it, they're like, no, it's not my thing. I don't know it. Go talk to this person, or I can't speak on that. And I think that's a huge thing that you said right there, because again, like you see so many people who try to just be experts in everything. And that's why, like, for me, I love med device sales. I know med device sales. I'm in the industry. We talk to CEOs, we talk to everybody. And it's like, we just want to talk about med device sales and help you all crush it in med device sales. I don't know advising. Bam. And like, the one thing I just truly want to say, when you find somebody that you truly trust and you like love and you know that they're really good at your job, I think that's been the biggest thing I've been very thankful about is like, I've never looked at the fees, man. I've never looked at, I'm like, I know that you do it. And every time we meet, I see it. You show me the investment, you show me the returns, and I'm like, this is it. And I think that's one thing that I just want to put out there to anybody as you start your journey is, yes, don't not look at the fees when you're talking about, like, do your homework, do your stuff. But it's like, I've learned this with growing from nothing to where we're going, growing businesses and talking with thousands of business owners and talking with all these people. It's really hard to find really good people. It's really hard to find people who are trustworthy, good human beings. And actually, the biggest thing, have the best interest of you at heart and not what they can get from you. Because when you can find those people, that's when you know it's going to like actually get you where you need to go. And that's why I'm just want to just first off say super thankful for you, man. Is like, you've truly helped change my life. Because without you, without like us having those talks and you actually giving me number goals, there's some of the goals I would never have thought of. And then just knowing that I can trust you, come each week or each quarter we meet and we can talk. Every time I call you or I need questions or I have questions, you're available. Every time I need you to meet with our team, you're available. And it's just super hard to find people that are super reliable, super good at what they actually do. And the biggest thing is actually care about a human being and not what they can just get from them, but just actually care about that person and hope the best interest with them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I mean, that's a big reason why I got into this job is I love to help people.
Yeah.
You know, I always say, you mentioned the stress part earlier. Money does bring a lot of stress. You know, I enjoy taking that stress load, bringing it onto myself, where because of my knowledge, right, I can handle it and I can put you guys in a good spot.
Yeah.
I think one question I ask clients all the time is, you know, what keeps you up at night?
Mm.
So my job is to give you peace of mind, right? You're not worrying about your financial plan. You know it's intact.
Yep.
We update you as needed. But just taking that stress off, knowing that you have a financial plan, not putting it off, not worried because you're not an expert, you shouldn't talk to someone, or maybe you're embarrassed to talk to somebody. Yeah. But just making it, you know, a comfortable environment to, hey, let's have those conversations because they're important.
Yep.
I appreciate those kind words. And I thoroughly enjoy working with clients.
It's awesome, man. So just so we can get these people value, if they're like, hey man, I see Tucker, I see holy camole, he is amazing at what he does. You can tell that he's a true professional. He's going, and like, this is where you're like, hey, I work with young professionals. I want to always just provide value, whether you actually work with them or you can just give them some free resources. Where can these people reach out to you at? Yeah,
I would say best thing, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Tucker Sahnow. You guys can tag it, but reach out to me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. Like I said, always open to 15, 20-minute phone calls. Worst case, I give you some free advice, send you in a different direction. Best case, hey, maybe it's a good fit to become a client.
And that's huge, guys. And again, why I just, always just want to put out value, whether it's with Tucker or with somebody else, you know, like, again, it's just to have you guys start thinking different. We just want to continue to help you because this, like Tucker alluded to, is like, this is an amazing industry. This is an industry that is known for being able to change people's lives. It's changed my life. And not only are we getting to change people's lives of being in the industry, it also, if you do your job, you change enough people's lives, you financially can be rewarded. But what I watch so many people do, and you hear me talk about it all the time, is I watch people come in and they make 150K and then they go make a lifestyle of 150K. And then you see people that have been in for 10, 15, 20 years, and they may feel a certain way about that. If they truly love it, I love that for them. But then what I'll see is people who might be the negative people on LinkedIn or might not really love it is because they've created a lifestyle and they don't have a retirement plan, or they're waiting for this, or they got a lifestyle. And so that's what this is all about, is just trying to educate you all so you can do more research, but wanted to give you a general overview. And I just want to take a moment to say, Tucker, thank you so much for joining us and really appreciate your time tonight and being able to help our audience.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Jacob.
Yeah, man. And if you guys are really interested in breaking into medical device sales or learn more, reach out to us, Jacob McLaughlin, or New to Medical Device Sales at LinkedIn. We can always help you. It's been really cool to see just the people that we're impacting. Our average person is breaking in 8.2 weeks at $94,478. If you guys are really serious about breaking into medical device sales, you can click the link below, or you can reach out to us. And when it comes to first year in, it's been so cool to see this podcast grow. And when I made first year in, I thought it was just going to be a podcast about, hey, we're helping people that are in the industry, which hopefully this podcast helps you so much if you guys are reps and you are in the industry. But we've also been able to help people that are associates or full line reps, but they've been in for a year or two and they're not making the money they want. They're making 60, 100, 110K, but they want to go 150, 200, and they want that step. We've been able to help people go. We just got somebody who was an associate, came in as a full line rep at $180,000, and it's been absolutely amazing. So if you guys are interested and want to learn more, again, reach out to me at Jacob McLaughlin or New Medical Device Sales on LinkedIn or all the socials we have, or you guys can click the link below. Always schedule a time. But again, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you to every single person that is watching. If you can press that like and subscribe button, a 5-star review helps us grow this channel. And if you think this is helpful for somebody in med device sales or even outside of medical device sales, it would mean the world to me if you can share it. So until next time, keep going after your dreams, keep going after your goals, and we'll see you then. Peace.